Hi, welcome back to Reading Pathways. I'm Matt, and I just wanted to do a quick, if possible, try to keep it on the quicker side, check-in type video today. Just finished a couple books recently, so just go over those quickly. And one of them was my initial choice for Dr. November, the booktube event going on right now for November, where if you're participating, you try to read espionage, spy-related books. So I finished a book there and have a couple potential options to go forward with for the rest of the month. So let me jump in. So I picked up something from the library the other day to sort of break up some other reading and just throw into the mix for a change of pace. And that was No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. So I haven't really read a book much like this before. I think she goes by Tricia Lockwood more often than not, but she's a poet, an author, but also sort of like a social media personality. And, that plays into this book. So I've heard the term autofiction used a lot, where it's sort of this new contemporary fiction blend of fiction and nonfiction, where the author is basically telling their own story, but through a fictionalized version of themselves. And I think that aptly describes this book, because I don't think there's any doubt that Tricia Lockwood is telling her own story here through the unnamed anonymous female character in this. But basically, my big takeaway with this, so it's broken into two parts, and the first part of this book, which is probably 60% of the book, I would say, reads pretty much just like a series of little thoughts, little blurbs, unconnected sort of little turns of phrase, and it almost does read like tweets or something someone would post on social media. In the book, the character, the main female character, who is sort of a stand-in for the author, in my opinion, refers to the internet and social media as the portal. And it's kind of a loose stand-in for social media. It's not like it's that buried of a metaphor. It's pretty clear what that is. But the choice of the terminology portal and the idea of that, I think, does resonate. There's references in the first half of this to, she's going about her day, she's going about her life, and if she's removed from the portal, or if she's disconnected from it for an extended period of time, she feels sort of this draw back towards it and this urge to like plug back in, basically, and see what she's missing, see what's going on. There was a line somewhere in the beginning of this that really kind of struck me and resonated with me. It was something to the effect of, it felt nice to be connected to the portal because it allowed her to sort of feel like she was part of the greater goings on of the world, and she was aware of the news, she was aware of sort of the current events and what's going on, what people were talking about, basically. And that resonated with me. I mean, I'm not a big social media user by any means, but there is sort of this sense that it's just so predominant now and so ubiquitous, and covers so much ground, that if you don't look at it ever, or don't check it, or have no awareness of it, then you feel like you are missing out a bit, in a way, of sort of what's going on at the moment, what people are talking about or tweeting about or anything. So that idea kind of resonated and rang true a little bit. But like I said, for the most part, the first half of this is loosely connected, little blurbs from the character's life. It talks about her family, her sister, her husband, sort of things that she's doing. And it is a pretty good recreation of, I think, what a social media world feels like, where you have these little urges, these little whims, and you want to either say them or tweet them or whatever, or you want to read somebody else's, to see what's kind of going on and to share your 2 cents into that chorus of voices. But I think the theme of the first half is sort of, it is exactly told in the way it's written, where nothing is really that connected, and therefore there's really no concrete picture that emerges from it. But that's drastically changed in the second half of this as it changes course completely. It's still written in the same way, where it's sort of these blurbs, these little Twitter-esque paragraphs, I mean. But there is a unifying theme in the second half to what's going on, and it has to do with the main character's niece, her sister's baby in utero, basically. And they get news that she is diagnosed with a condition called protein syndrome, which the author and the narrator refers to in here is colloquially known as kind of the elephant syndrome, from sort of the 80s, I think, movie The Elephant Man. It's kind of that syndrome, and it's an uncontained, unstoppable growth syndrome, basically, of the human body. So she learns that her niece is going to be diagnosed with this, and when she's born, most of the second half deals with sort of the baby's upbringing in the time that she has. It's definitely not sugar-coated. It goes into pretty specific detail on the machines that she's hooked up to, the breathing tubes that she's hooked up to, and yet she's able to have some type of life for a time. And I think it's very effective in the second half, because kind of out of nowhere, all of a sudden you're hit. I forget exactly what point in the book it is, but you're hit with the title line from the book in one of her little passages, where she says, no one is talking about this. And to me, that brought the theme of the book together, which I think is the social media world and the internet world basically addresses everything and anything all the time. It also reminded me of Bo Burnham and Inside, his Netflix special, if you've seen that. And he's got the Welcome to the Internet song that he does in that, where he says everything and anything all of the time. That's basically what the internet is. People are just saying anything and everything all the time. But the sharp realization, I think, and the point for me of this, the main takeaway was, okay, but my niece now has Elephant Man syndrome and she's going to die, but no one's talking about that. Why not? And I think that's the message of the book to me, is that what do you do when you get so plugged in and so dependent on takes, reactions, social media, ventings, and musings, and all these things swirling around that you're either just a casual observer of or a participant in? When that's the way of the world, and something so dire and something so tragic and personal happens in your life, no one's going to be talking about that. That's not something you're going to see addressed in the portal, in the internet, in social media. So then it's just kind of your own thing. And I don't know if the point for Patricia Lockwood is that, thank God and thankfully we still have our own personal lives and our own personal issues that the portal can't touch unless we invite it to touch those issues. Or if it's her sort of, I guess, regret or wish that she could share that, but she doesn't feel like she's able to. But either way, it's when that title line was dropped, it definitely hit me pretty hard, as far as, there are some things still that no one is going to be talking about, and that you yourself personally are still going to have to wrestle with and grapple with internally. And that's, I think, what happened when the book shifted into the second phase here. So, yeah, the writing was witty, humorous, dark, very, very dark at times, but, I think dark with a message behind it, not dark for the sake of being dark. I think it was trying to examine, again, when social media is basically the chorus of voices of the world these days, and you may have a voice in that, what is absent from that? Because it covers everything, it would seem. So what is absent from that? And in the second part, she gives an example of something that is absent from that. And maybe that's the point, is that that's sacred and it should be kept personal and absent from that. But that's my sort of loose takeaways from that. I'm glad I kind of gave that a read. And Patricia Lockwood has a follow-up book to that one, which just came out recently. I think it's called Will There Be Another Like You, I want to say. And, you know, after reading that, I think at some point I would like to check her newest one out. Okay, so then turning to Dr. No-vember reading updates. So first, completed A Perfect Spy by John Le Carré. So this is what I picked to read for Dr. No-vember. I kind of looked at my bookshelves in here in my collection and tried to pick something the most on point. And this was the obvious first choice that jumped out at me. I think that the organizers of Dr. No-vember are reading possibly another John Le Carré book, but this is the one I had. So yeah, at this point I will just say I probably will drop a couple spoilers in talking about this. I still really haven't settled into a method of talking about books without spoilers that I enjoy or that works for me, so I'd rather just sort of talk about the big takeaways of this for me, which kind of necessarily entails spoilers. So if that's an issue for you, then I just wanted to let you know. But yeah, I mean, I like this a lot. I thought it ended on a great note. Overall takeaways, I think, would be that I've seen a lot of takes on this and reviews that basically say, well, John Le Carré's writing in this is not very straightforward. It's not necessarily what you would expect of kind of more, you know, linear point A to point B to point C spy fiction. It's definitely not, and I agree. And I've seen people say that it takes like 100 pages maybe to get into the flow of this and get used to the writing. And I would say that's pretty accurate as well, because it tells the story of Magnus Pym, the main character who is a spy, but it tells the story through sort of a tell-all memoir type thing that he's writing when he's on the lam. He's on the run and he's missing. And he's writing it to his son, Jack. But early in the book, it bounces around quite a bit and enough between perspectives and time periods in a non-linear fashion that it did take me a while to sort of get used to the writing style and the structure of it. But once I did, it really just kind of took off from there, and I didn't have an issue with it going forward from that point. So if I had to flag any negative takeaway from this, I mean, I just finished it this morning a little while ago, so, you know, if I really sat down and hashed out negative thoughts on it, there might be more. But the one thing that kind of continued to jump out at me in this, there's a, you know, important character in this, Jack Brotherhood. I'm sorry, I think I referred to his son as Jack. His son is Tom, who he's writing his memoir to. But his mentor is Jack Brotherhood, and it's sort of his entryway into the spy world. And you know, Jack Brotherhood is sort of portrayed as this, you know, expert sleuth and somebody who basically paved the way for Magnus to enter this world. And the only negative thing on the top of my head right now after finishing this is there were a lot of scenes and a lot of little snippets where Jack Brotherhood was searching for Pym, and he would be interviewing people in Magnus's life, his wife even, you know, past relationships of his, past friends and accomplices of his, and it seemed almost a little bit unbelievable sometimes. Brotherhood's questioning methods and interrogation methods, just to me as a layperson reading this, sometimes I got the sense they were a little amateurish. They seem to me a little bit like naive sometimes. Like, for example, he would be interrogating people about trying to find Magnus Pym, and he would say things like, okay, well, did he give you any indication where he might be? You know, did he describe where he might, you know, disappear to on occasion? Did he ever describe to you like a little cabin or a little shack somewhere? If so, what did he mention about it? And the answer was always universally, not really. You know, he didn't. And because Magnus is sort of this perfect spy character, who's able to kind of hide himself. And you know, eventually Brotherhood does get onto the trail of him, you know, as the book progresses. But the Brotherhood character was a tricky one for me. I don't know how I feel about him. I kind of have a negative feeling of him as a character. And I don't know yet if that is just he's an unlikable character and he's portrayed in that way accurately by Le Carré, and therefore he's supposed to be unlikable. There is partially that, but there's also, like I said, partially a bit of me that there's a bit of an unbelievable aspect of his character where it just seemed he served as sort of this, you know, plot device where he's the one trailing and trying to piece together where Magnus could be. But it almost read more like if I personally were trying to find someone, I would interview people close to him and I would ask kind of the same questions as Jack Brotherhood did. Like, okay, well, where do you think he is? And he just never sort of had an idea and didn't seem to probe that much deeper in those scenes than just, did he leave any evidence? Did he leave any breadcrumbs where you think he might be? Things that I might try to ask if I was looking for someone. Whereas Jack Brotherhood in the book is supposed to be this, you know, professional, high-level agent of an intelligence firm. So I don't know. That's the only thing with me I need to think about more and kind of see if I missed something there and see if, you know, maybe the characterization of Brotherhood is just supposed to be that way. But putting that aside, that's the only thing that kind of stuck in my craw a little bit. Otherwise, yeah, once I got the hang of the writing of this, but you know, if you're picturing John Le Carré writing as sort of just standard cookie cutter sort of action thriller, spy thriller type language, as maybe I did once upon a time, it's definitely not. It's much more stream of consciousness type writing than I expected. But again, once I got in the flow of it, it was really good. There's some really powerful scenes in this. You know, one of the themes is Magnus Pym, the main character. You see him in flashbacks to his youth, to his sort of teenage years, his schooling years, university years, and then even as an adult, obviously. And through all of that, you get a lot of his relationship with his father, Rick, who's this really hard-nosed spy in his own right. He's an operative, and he's sort of a swindler and a con man, and has all these fake companies he operates under. And he always kind of calls Magnus his greatest pal, his best pal ever, but really he's pushing him in a direction, you know, to live the same lifestyle as him, and he kind of ends up doing that. One of the highlights of the book for sure was in a really incredible chapter in the middle of the book where you get a flashback to Rick, Magnus's father. He's running for election to Parliament, I think, in England. And Magnus has sort of grown, you know, have this growing resentment of his father for the way he's been treated sort of all these years and the person that his father is. And he kind of acts on that finally at that point. His father is appearing at like a campaign rally, campaign event. And before that, Magnus divulges secrets about his father to this woman who Rick, his father, had wronged. He'd wronged her and her husband in the past, and basically bankrupted them and promised them the moon and stars and financial backing, and then kind of pulled the rug out from under them, and so they were left sort of destitute and whatnot, and totally screwed by his father. And there's documentation of that hidden away, and Magnus basically leads this woman right to that, to betray his father. And very climactic scene when his father is up on stage and there's the audience out there, and the woman that he gave these secrets to is in the audience, and she kind of gets the attention of his father and reveals that she knows these things, that he went to jail in the past for something related to her. And instead of focusing on the woman in the crowd, Rick, Magnus's father, he turns to his son and sort of glares at him, and they have this meeting of the eyes type moment where he knows he's betrayed him. And from that point on in life, it's basically Magnus flips over into being the dominant one in the relationship, and Rick is basically just forever then resentful of his son, and he sold him down the river basically, and and then one other point on this, and this is a spoiler type thing as well. So I find often when I finish a book, especially one of like substantial length like this, and there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of like plot threads that are sort of weaving together, I'm often left with like a big question at the end, and I tried to look into this. I don't know if anyone else is left with this question, but if anyone's read this, I'd be interested to hear your take on this. So we know throughout the whole novel that Magnus Pym is hiding out in this little room, basically on a top floor of this little apartment hotel type thing, and the landlady is this old woman, Mrs. Dubbers, and you see very few throughout the book. You don't get a lot in this book of Magnus in the current day where he's hiding out. You do get it from time to time, but it's mostly not that. It's mostly his prior life. But whenever you do get his present scenes, he's with this Miss Dubbers, I think, landlady, and he's so attentive to her. He takes care of her cat. He constantly wants to get her to go on a cruise. He makes sure she's fed. He makes sure that her accommodations are okay, and checks up on her. And you're wondering who this is, I guess, and if there's any connection between them. It's initially there's no evidence that there is, but then you learn throughout the book that Magnus Pym's mother vanished from his life early in his life, basically. And you don't really get much more about her. But then as the book progresses later and later, and the those who are searching for Magnus sort of start getting clues and start getting closer, there's a part where there's a little bit of a crumb that's put in there that Magnus told somebody that he's tending to his mother, that he went to tend to his mother. And his wife Mary learns that Magnus said this, and goes, well, no, what do you mean? He doesn't have a mother, as far as I know. She disappeared. No one knows anything about her, where she went. There is no mother. And I'm pretty sure Magnus told this to Axel, who's like his other half in this book, his best friend, and they trade secrets, and they kind of come up as spies together, unbeknownst to everybody else. And he's sort of the only character that I think Magnus would tell something like that to, maybe in truth. And so there is a little bit of a hint, a little bit of a whisper as the book goes on that maybe Miss Dubbers might be Magnus's mother. It's never explicitly said. It's never even really hinted explicitly. It's just he said this to somebody offhand, that he's seeing his mother, and it took Mary, his wife, by shock that makes no sense. And then really, really poignant ending scene to this is, I'm not going to give away the biggest spoiler of the book as far as, the end of the story of Magnus, but what I will say is eventually when they get to his hideout place, the final scene of this, the final sentence is Mrs. Dubbers, the landlady, coming down her stairs of her front porch of the house in her nightgown, and she's described as this distinguished lady, and they see her coming down. And I don't know, I was left with the question of, is that Magnus's mother? I've never been able to find online any review or anything else that brings up that question. So if you've read this, is that something you ever thought? I really don't know. Maybe I'm off base there. Maybe I missed something that definitively proves that can't be the case. But I was certainly left with that question. But yeah, this was a really, really good read. It was pretty chunky. It was 475 pages, kind of in the big, hardcover pages. So I think as a paperback, this is like 600 plus pages or something. So big spy novel for nonfiction November, which was very, very good. And to finish up here, Dr. November, not nonfiction November. That was for Dr. November. And speaking of which, I figured, there's 12-ish days left in November, so maybe I can get going with something else Dr. November related. So I looked around the shelves again, and I don't know that I came up with too much other than this one, Carlos Fuentes, The Hydra Head. And this is from 1978, and the Carré book is from 1987, so within 10 years of each other. Both of these guys liked their picture on the back of their books around this time frame. I think that was pretty common. As far as Carlos Fuentes, the Hydra head, there's no other description in this, just the picture. So I have up here on the computer Anthony Burgess's 1979 review of this in the New York Times. That is available online. So I'm just going to read a quick snippet or two from this to give a little flavor of what the Hydra head might be. But I think I'm going to maybe take a look at this. It's shorter. It's only 280 pages in the paperback, so might be able to get this done in November and, you know, get another look at a spy novel. So let's see. So the review from Burgess. Early on in Carlos Fuentes' new novel, an elevator attendant looks as if for the first time at the design on a Mexican peso, the eagle strangling the serpent. Toward the end, the narrator fantasticates the image in the service of explaining what the secret agent's trade is all about. The serpent is a hydra, and the agent is but one head of the hydra. Cut off that head, and 1,000 will replace it. And so the main character, I believe, is Felix, who I believe is an agent, and it's set in Mexico. And then let me just see here. So Burgess also says in the review, perhaps the true distinction of the novel resides in its having forever dispensed with the possibilities of the spy thriller as a serious form. Dr. Fuentes, unlike those critics who see literary Latin America as condemned to the production of works of genius, is a modest enough writer. It's translated from the Spanish, and so let's see, and the conclusion to the review here. But let everybody be quiet, and the eye take in the machetes, the flame-colored bananas, the splash of hot sauce on the spectacles of a professor, and we're firmly set in the Mexico Dr. Fuentes has labored so hard to make us at least begin to understand. So that's just to give you a little, you know, little preview, a little flavor of what this book might be like. But it's basically the only other qualifying novel I found on my shelves that I think meets the description for Dr. No-vember. So I think I'll take a look at that. And then I currently don't have anything on my Kindle that I'm reading. I plan to get something at some point soon, but in the meantime, I looked what I have available through Libby for me that I can take from the library, and I was trying to see if there's anything else Dr. No-vember related that I can look at, and what I found was I can take this one from the library on Libby. This is A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. The untold story of the American spy who helped win World War II. So I have the description of this up on Libby here. I'm going to see if I can show the title and read it to you, and see if I might get this on my Kindle to complement the Hydra head, and see if I can maybe get 2 more Dr. No-vember things, at least started and maybe finished in the month. So A Never Before Told Story of Virginia Hall, the American spy who changed the course of World War II, from the author of Clementine. In 1942, the Gestapo sent out an urgent transmission. She is the most dangerous of all Allied spies. We must find and destroy her. Their target in their sights was Virginia Hall, a Baltimore socialite who talked her way into Special Operations Executive, the spy organization dubbed Winston Churchill's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. She became the first Allied woman deployed behind enemy lines, and despite her prosthetic leg, helped to light the flame of the French resistance, revolutionizing secret warfare as we know it. So that is about Virginia Hall, true story of an American spy in World War II. And this is nonfiction, obviously, and it is available for me to take from Libby onto my Kindle. So yeah, might be nice to have a nonfiction tie-in for Dr. No-vember. And this would be another fiction spy novel. So I think I might get going with these 2 because, you know, I finished A Perfect Spy, and there's plenty of November left for me to hopefully continue participating in the event. But I see we're coming up on the classic Matt 30 minutes mark, which I don't seem able to stay underneath. So let me see if I can wrap this up. But thanks for checking out the reading update. I've been enjoying my first foray into kind of Dr. No-vember and spy books, and hope to continue those. So thanks again, and hopefully I'll be back soon with more updates.